Good morning. Welcome to the last reading of A Tertiary World, the last two memories that arose as I walked down Faraday Street in 2008. Faraday Street being the seventh of 7 east-west streets, and that together with 7 north-south streets made up the grid inside which I lived and inside which I built up a kind of memory body that the walking attempted to re-experience. Faraday Street, colour is violet. This is the 5th memory along Faraday Street, the corner of Faraday and Cardigan. After Baxter, we all came to live here. I can't remember exactly why we left, but for a few brief weeks, being here was heaven. We could walk out the front door and there was Cardigan Street, and we could actually shop in Lycon Street each day. We looked out of our windows right onto where pedestrians brushed past the sills overlooking the footpath and cars glided by in the street. From the upstairs bedroom, you could get a glimpse of the exhibition building's dome. Each night, we luxuriated in the deep cast iron bath upstairs and enjoyed sunny breakfasts in the kitchen at the back. Flooded on each of those faraway autumn mornings by the cheery eastern light shining down from above the Dandenongs. The wind swept clear through our lives that year until early winter, tossing them up in turbulent air and chasing them over the surface of everything. Then suddenly we were becalmed, with no one now willing to take the wheel. Sails rolled tight and motor flooded, all of us scanning the horizon in an astonished terror for signs of rescue. This is the very last memory that arose in Faraday Street and the very last memory that arose as I walked down each of the 14 streets. The corner of Faraday and Rathdowne. Sometimes in the late 80s, I don't know exactly when, it's all a blur now, I had access to a small sum of money and I toyed with the idea of buying the 2-story bluestone house near the corner of Rathdowne Street. For many weeks, it had worn a for sale sign attached to its front cast iron fence. One day, I impulsively telephoned the agent named on the board. The price she quoted seemed to be within my budget, and I became even more enthusiastic about the prospect of buying this house. But as soon as I decided to make an offer, she suddenly became quite vague about the contract details and the process that should be followed. She said she would get back to me the following day, but after she hung up, I had the distinct feeling that she had become evasive for a particular reason, then unknown to me. The very next day, a sold sign was plastered onto the board, and I never heard from her again. A few weeks later, I mentioned this event to a friend who worked in real estate, and he just smiled. He told me that he knew her and that she'd bought the house herself the very morning after she'd spoken to me. I can't help each time I drive or walk past it, thinking how it might have been to live there, or even if I ever would have. Too noisy, I say to myself sometimes, and at other times I think too quiet. I don't know how it would have been exactly, but I know that my life would have unfolded in an entirely different way. I do know that much. But did she end up living there, or did she simply buy it as an investment? Is that her walking out the front door right now, back slightly hunched, grim expression on her face? Even the right house sometimes, the house we think we really want, the house we think will solve all our problems, if only we could buy it, will not be enough to soothe the ills. Not nearly enough. At such times my step quickens and the light in the sky seems brighter. Look, high up in the west, where the weather comes from, there's a break in the clouds. Well, that brings the readings from A Tertiary World to a completion. I began way back in March reading you Calvino's Invisible Cities, and then A Calvinian Architecture, my account of various aspects of my life, and then A Tertiary World. I'm tempted to read you the last series of stories that I put together, titled Walking Slowly Downhill, which is an account of my walk along the Murray River from source high up on Mount Kosciuszko to mouth at Goolwa in South Australia. And each of the days that I walked over 3.5 months, I wrote a story. I'm tempted to read it to you, but I don't want to bore you. And of course I know how it works. You won't read it if you don't want to. But I still feel slightly invasive posting my account of my small life up each day on either LinkedIn or YouTube. I will have a break for a few days and think about how we go with this condition that we're still living under. Initially, the readings were supposed to be a way to distract you from your focus on your lives, my life as well, by listening to these stories. The stories have come and gone, and the need for distraction continues. Well, perhaps not distraction, but a different kind of focus. I'll probably continue posting up some piano sounds and some voice, some accounts of those haiku poems written by mostly European migrants to the US in the 20s, 30s, 40s and 50s. I will continue with those every now and then, and I'll think about reading you accounts of the walk from walking slowly downhill. Thank you for having followed, if you have, or if you've just casually looked in now and then, these readings. They've been, of course, as I've said a number of times, very salutary for me, very, very precious for me to be able to share them with you. I wish you a wonderful spring and an even better summer. Thank you again very much for having taken the trouble to listen to my stories. Goodbye.